The autumn wind swept through the streets of Manhattan, carrying fallen leaves past the windows of the Silver Spoon, an upscale restaurant where the wealthy came to see and be seen. Inside, among the warm glow of crystal chandeliers and hushed conversations, moved a young woman whose tired eyes held a story few would ever guess. Lily Chen balanced 3 plates along her arm with practiced precision, navigating between tables with graceful steps that hinted at years of disciplined movement. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her black uniform pressed despite being halfway through a double shift that had started at 11 that morning. "Your pan-seared salmon, sir," she said, placing the dish before an older gentleman who barely looked up from his phone, "and the risotto for the lady." Her voice was soft yet clear, like someone used to being heard in large spaces. The couple mumbled their thanks, already absorbed in their own conversation. Lily stepped back with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. 8 hours down, 4 more to go. Table 12 needs water and 14 is asking for the check, whispered Robert, another server, as they passed near the kitchen. Lily nodded. "I've got water. Could you grab the check? My section just filled up with a party of 6. As she moved toward the service station to fill water glasses, her gaze drifted toward the corner of the restaurant where a beautiful grand piano sat. The polished black surface gleamed under the soft lights, untouched most nights except for Thursdays when the restaurant hired a pianist. For their classical evenings, something in Lily's expression changed when she looked at the piano, a flicker of longing so brief that anyone watching would have missed it. Her fingers twitched slightly at her side, unconsciously playing invisible keys. "Stop daydreaming, Chen," barked Vincent, the floor manager, as he swept past. "Those waters won't deliver themselves." "Sorry," she murmured, quickly filling the crystal glasses. Vincent wasn't a bad manager, just perpetually stressed. The restaurant catered to people who expected perfection, and he made sure they got it. The evening continued at its relentless pace. Lily moved between tables, taking orders, delivering food, clearing plates. Her feet ached in the mandatory black shoes, and her lower back had been sending warning signals since hour 6. But she kept moving, kept smiling. The tips tonight had been decent. Not great, but decent. Maybe enough to finally get her heating fixed before winter truly set in. During a rare quiet moment, Lily slipped into the small employee bathroom. She splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection. 26 years old. This wasn't where she had imagined herself at 26. Her mind drifted back to the concert hall at Juilliard, to the feeling of sitting before a Steinway, hundreds of eyes on her as she prepared to play. The memory was so vivid she could almost feel the cool ivory beneath her fingertips, hear the expectant silence before the first note. A sharp knock on the door jolted her back to reality. "Order up for table 20, called the voice of Danny, one of the kitchen staff. "Coming." Lily dried her face quickly and returned to the floor. The party of 6 in her section was celebrating something, a promotion from the snippets of conversation she overheard. They ordered expensive wines and multiple courses, their laughter growing louder as the evening progressed. Lily moved efficiently around them, anticipating needs, refilling glasses, timing the courses perfectly. "You're good at this," noted one of the women at the table, actually making eye contact with Lily as she placed a dessert menu before her. "Been here long?" "Almost 3 years," Lily replied with a genuine smile, surprised at being seen as a person rather than just part of the restaurant's machinery. "Well, you make it look easy." It wasn't easy. Nothing had been easy since her mother's cancer diagnosis during Lily's final year at Juilliard. The medical bills had piled up faster than the scholarships and part-time jobs could handle. Then came the difficult choice: finish school or help her family. For Lily, it hadn't really been a choice at all. She had withdrawn, promising herself and her tearful mother that it was just temporary. She'd go back and finish when things stabilized. But her mother's condition had worsened, requiring more expensive treatments, more time at her bedside. After she passed, there were funeral expenses, the remaining medical bills, and helping her younger brother with college. 3 years had passed in a blur of double shifts and shared apartments with rotating roommates. Her prized piano had been sold long ago to make rent during a particularly tight month. "Chen, table 4 needs you," called Robert from across the room, pulling Lily from her thoughts. She glanced over to see a new group being seated in her section, 3 men in expensive suits, led by the hostess. The one in the center wore a casual blazer over a plain black t-shirt, his relaxed demeanor contrasting with the formal attire of his companions. Something about him seemed familiar, but Lily couldn't place it. As she approached with water and menus, she overheard snippets of their conversation. Just close the deal this afternoon. Thornfield's backing means we're fully funded through the next phase. The man in the blazer, presumably Thornfield, was scrolling through his phone, seeming only half engaged in the conversation. He had the distracted air of someone whose mind was always partially elsewhere, working on the next problem, the next opportunity. "Good evening, gentlemen," Lily said. "Welcome to the Silver Spoon. My name is Lily, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with something to drink?" The two suits ordered expensive scotch. Thornfield, still looking at his phone, asked for sparkling water with lime. As Lily turned to fetch their drinks, she felt the faint vibration of her phone in her pocket. No personal phones were allowed on the floor, but she knew who it would be. Her brother Kevin calling about their rent payment. He was working 2 jobs himself while finishing his engineering degree, and they pooled resources to make ends meet. She would have to wait until her break to call him back. For now, there were drinks to deliver, specials to recite, and orders to take. When she returned to the table, the atmosphere had shifted. The two suits looked uncomfortable, and Thornfield was frowning at the menu. "There's nothing creative here," he was saying. "Same dishes as every other place in this neighborhood." "The chef is quite renowned," one of his companions offered. Thornfield made a dismissive gesture. "Renowned for playing it safe, maybe. I want something that surprises me, something authentic." Lily hesitated, then said, "The chef does prepare a special fusion dish, if you ask. It's not on the menu, but it combines French techniques with Thai flavors. Quite unique." All 3 men looked up at her as if suddenly remembering she was there. "Is it good?" Thornfield asked directly, his full attention on her for the first time. "It's my favorite thing here," she answered honestly. "I save up to order it on my birthday." Something in her candid response seemed to amuse him. The corner of his mouth twitched upward. "Then that's what I'll have," he declared. "And bring whatever wine you think pairs best with it." The suits exchanged glances but followed their companion's lead and ordered the same. As Lily turned to place their orders, she could feel Thornfield's eyes still on her, assessing. The kitchen was chaotic as usual, with Chef Paolo barking orders and line cooks moving in the practice dance of a busy restaurant kitchen. 3 off-menu specials for table 4, Lily called out. Chef Paolo shot her a look. "The Thai-French thing? Who ordered that?" "Some tech guy named Thornfield and his friends." A sous chef nearly dropped a pan. "Wait, Alex Thornfield?" "The Alex Thornfield. I don't know," Lily shrugged. "Is he famous or something?" The sous chef stared at her. "He's only the founder of Quantum Systems and worth about $6 billion. He's been on the cover of Tech Innovator 3 times. Now Lily understood why he had looked familiar. His face occasionally appeared on news sites she scrolled through during breaks. "Well, famous or not, he wants the special," she said, unfazed. The wealthy and occasionally famous were common enough at the Silver Spoon. When she returned to the dining room, she noticed a commotion near the entrance. Vincent was speaking urgently with the hostess, who kept glancing toward table 4. Apparently, word had spread about their notable guest. As the evening progressed, Lily noticed subtle changes in how the staff operated around Thornfield's table. Vincent himself came by to ensure everything was satisfactory. The suits seemed to grow more relaxed as the wine flowed, but Thornfield remained observant, his eyes occasionally following Lily as she attended to her other tables. During a moment when she was arranging silverware at the service station, she felt her fingers unconsciously moving in the familiar pattern of Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece she had once performed to a standing ovation. The muscle memory remained even after all this time. Little did she know that these small, unconscious movements, the way she tapped rhythms on her serving tray, the grace of her hands as she poured wine, and the distant look in her eyes when she glanced at the piano, were being noticed by someone who had made a fortune by observing what others missed, and that attention was about to change everything. Lily delivered the special fusion dishes to table 4 with practiced efficiency, setting each plate with a slight flourish. "Chef Paolo says to enjoy his Thai-French creation," she announced, stepping back to give them space. The 2 businessmen in suits nodded politely, But Alex Thornfield looked up at her with unexpected intensity. "You said this is your birthday dish?" he asked, his tone genuinely curious. Lily nodded, surprised he'd remembered that small detail. "Yes, it's a bit above my usual budget. When was your last birthday?" The personal question caught her off guard. In this restaurant, most wealthy patrons treated servers as invisible, not as people with birthdays and preferences. 3 months ago, she answered honestly. "And did you have this then?" She hesitated. "Not this year. My brother needed textbooks for his engineering program." Something flickered across Alex's face. Not pity, which Lily would have hated, but something more like recognition. He gestured toward the empty chair at their table. "Sit for a minute." Lily glanced nervously around the restaurant. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're not allowed to—" "Just for a minute," he insisted, then looked over at Vincent, who was hovering nearby. "I'm sure your manager won't mind." Vincent's face contorted in a forced smile. "Of course not, Mr. Thornfield. Take a moment, Lily." Reluctantly, Lily perched on the edge of the chair, keeping her posture professional. She was acutely aware of other servers watching with a mixture of curiosity and envy. Alex cut into his dish and took a bite, his expression thoughtful as he tasted it. "This is good, different." He looked at her. "Where did you learn about food like this?" "My mom loved to cook," Lily said, relaxing slightly. She combined recipes from everywhere. Said food should tell a story about where you've been and where you want to go. The words had slipped out naturally, more than she usually shared with customers. Something about Alex's direct manner made ordinary small talk feel pointless. He nodded as if her answer confirmed something for him. "And where do you want to go, Lily?" The question hung in the air, unexpectedly heavy. One of the suited men cleared his throat. "Alex, we should discuss the development timeline for—" "In a minute. Dave," Alex said without looking away from Lily. "I'm having a conversation." Dave fell silent, exchanging glances with the other suit. Lily's hands rested on the tablecloth, and she realized she was unconsciously tapping out the rhythm to a Bach prelude with her fingers. She quickly stopped when she noticed Alex watching the movement. "I should get back to work," she said, standing. "Enjoy your meal, gentlemen." As she walked away, she could feel Alex's eyes following her. The interaction left her feeling oddly exposed, as if he had somehow seen past her server persona to something beneath. The next hour passed in the usual blur of activity. The restaurant reached its peak dinner rush with nearly every table filled. Lily moved efficiently between her assigned stations, refilling water glasses, delivering food, and processing payments. Occasionally she glanced toward table 4, where Alex and his companions were still engaged in what appeared to be an increasingly intense business discussion. During a quick trip to the kitchen, she overheard 2 line cooks talking. "That's definitely him, Alex Thornfield," one was saying. "My cousin works at Quantum Systems. Says he's brilliant but impossible. Changes his mind constantly, demands perfection." "Heard he grew up poor in Detroit," the other replied. "Now he's worth billions. No wonder he's intense." Lily filed this information away as she collected her orders. It explained something about the way Alex had reacted to her comment about the textbooks. Not with the awkward sympathy of someone born to privilege, but with the recognition of someone who remembered what it was like to make those kinds of choices. When she returned to the dining room, she noticed that Alex was alone at the table. "The suits had apparently left. Your friends had to go," she asked as she cleared their empty plates. "They're not friends, they're investors," Alex said, taking a sip of water. "And yes, they had another engagement. I told them to go ahead." He gestured to the empty chair again. "Sit for a minute. Your manager is busy seating a large party." Lily hesitated, then sat down. Her feet were killing her, and she still had 3 hours left in her shift. "Why do you work here?" Alex asked abruptly. The directness of the question surprised her again. "It pays the bills." "There are easier ways to pay bills." "Not with these tips," she countered. "And the schedule works with my other job." "Which is?" "I teach basic piano to kids on weekends," she said, then wondered why she had shared that detail. Alex's eyes lit up with interest. "So you do play?" "I thought so." Lily shifted uncomfortably. "Just basics now, enough to teach beginners." "But not always just basics," he pressed. "Your hands move differently from other servers. You have a pianist's discipline in your posture even after hours on your feet." She stared at him, unsettled by his observation. "Were you watching me?" "I notice things," he said simply. "It's what I do." A commotion from the kitchen interrupted them, the sound of breaking glass and raised voices. Vincent rushed past, his face tight with stress. "I should help," Lily said, standing quickly. Alex nodded. "Of course." The kitchen crisis turned out to be minor, a dropped tray of glasses quickly cleaned up. But when Lily returned to the dining room 15 minutes later, she found the atmosphere had changed. A group of young finance types had taken over a large table in the center of the restaurant. They were celebrating something already loud and demanding despite having just arrived. These were the worst kind of customers, entitled, impatient, and often stingy with tips despite ordering expensive bottles. One of them snapped his fingers at Lily as she passed. "Hey, we need service over here." She plastered on her professional smile. "I'll let your server know right away, sir." "You can't take our order?" he demanded, his voice carrying across several tables. "I'm sorry, but that section belongs to Robert. He'll be with you momentarily." The young man rolled his eyes and turned back to his friends. Lily caught fragments of their conversation as she moved away. Something about a successful trading day and plans to close the deal later at a club. When she passed table 4, she noticed Alex watching the finance group with undisguised distaste. His expression softened when he caught her eye. "How do you not scream at people like that?" he asked quietly as she cleared his dessert plate. Lily gave a small shrug. "Part of the job. Doesn't make it right," he said. Then he glanced toward the corner of the restaurant where the grand piano sat. "Does that thing actually work?" "The piano?" "Yes, it's kept tuned. We have a professional pianist on Thursdays." Something sparked in his eyes, a look of mischief that transformed his serious face. "Play something." Lily nearly dropped the plate she was holding. "What? And play something," he repeated. On the piano, she stared at him. "I can't just, I'm working. I'll speak to your manager." He was already half rising from his seat. "No," Lily said quickly. "Please don't, I need this job." Alex settled back in his chair, studying her face. "You're afraid to play." It wasn't a question, a flush crept up her neck. "I'm not afraid. It's inappropriate. And I'm out of practice." The loud finance group erupted in laughter at something, drawing glances from other diners. One of them knocked over a water glass, and Robert rushed over with a towel. Alex's attention returned to Lily. "I have a proposition for you." She raised an eyebrow, immediately wary. "I'll donate $50,000 to a music education program of your choice if you play one piece on that piano right now." Lily's mouth fell open. $50,000? Are you serious? "Completely," he said, pulling out his phone. "I can transfer it while you play." "Why would you do that?" she asked, genuinely confused. Alex leaned forward slightly. "Because I have more money than I know what to do with. Because those finance bros are annoying me, and I'd rather listen to music. Because I'm curious about what made you give up something you obviously loved." His brutal honesty was disarming. Lily glanced at the piano, feeling a pull she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge in years. "I can't," she said softly. "It's been too long." Alex studied her for a moment, then tried a different approach. "What piece would you play?" "If you could," the answer came without hesitation. "Chopin, Ballade No. 1 in G minor." Ambitious choice. "It was the last piece I performed publicly," she admitted, "before I left school." He nodded slowly. "Juilliard?" The fact that he had guessed correctly unnerved her. "How did you—" "Like I said, I noticed things." Vincent appeared at the table, smiling too broadly at Alex. "I hope everything has been satisfactory. Mr. Thornfield, can I get you anything else this evening?" Before Alex could answer, a crash came from the finance table. Someone had knocked over an entire bottle of red wine. Several servers rushed over with towels. Vincent's smile became strained. "Please excuse me for a moment." When he hurried away, Alex turned back to Lily. "My offer still stands. $50,000 to a music program. But now I'll add something else." He pulled a business card from his pocket and wrote something on the back. "Plus $20,000 for you. For tuition or whatever you need." Lily's breath caught. That kind of money would change everything. Her brother could focus on school without working 2 jobs. They could move to a better apartment. She could maybe even... She pushed the thought away. "I can't accept that. It's not charity," Alex said, seeming to read her mind. "Consider it payment for a private performance." The finance group was getting louder, clearly drunk and oblivious to the disruption they were causing. Several diners at nearby tables were looking annoyed. Alex stood up suddenly. "Excuse me," he said loudly, his voice cutting through the noise. The restaurant fell quiet, all eyes turning toward him. "I'd like to make an announcement," he continued. "This talented woman," he gestured toward Lily, who froze in horror, "is actually a former Juilliard pianist, and I've just challenged her to play for us." Whispers rippled through the restaurant. Vincent hurried over, his expression a mix of confusion and alarm. "Mr. Thornfield, I'm not sure that's... I'm donating $50,000 to music education if she plays one piece," Alex continued, ignoring Vincent. "And I think we'd all prefer some beautiful music too." He glanced meaningfully at the finance table. Other forms of entertainment. The diners chuckled. Even the finance group fell silent, suddenly self-conscious. All eyes turned to Lily, standing there in her server's uniform, her face burning with embarrassment and something else. A flicker of that old fire, the one that had driven her through countless hours of practice, the one she had thought was extinguished. Alex leaned close and whispered, "Sometimes we need a push to remember who we really are." Lily looked at him, then at the piano, then at Vincent, who seemed torn between potential disaster and the whim of an important customer. "It's your choice," Alex said quietly, "but I think you're tired of serving other people's dreams while putting your own on hold." The truth of his words hit her like a physical force. Vincent stepped forward. "Well, this is highly irregular, but..." He looked at Lily. "Do you actually play?" She took a deep breath, feeling as though she stood at a crossroads. "Yes," she said finally. "I play." The restaurant had fallen completely silent. Lily could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears as she slowly walked toward the piano in the corner. Each step felt both terrifying and strangely inevitable, as though she had been moving toward this moment for the past 3 years without realizing it. Vincent hovered uncertainly, caught between enforcing restaurant policy and accommodating the whims of a billionaire. "Just one song," he muttered to Lily as she passed. "Make it quick." The piano waited for her, its polished black surface reflecting the soft overhead lights. It was a Yamaha Grand, not a Steinway like she was used to from her Juilliard days, but still a beautiful instrument. As she approached, memories flooded back. Practice rooms with windows fogged from breath and effort, her mother's proud smile at recitals, the weight of possibility that used to fill her chest before each performance. The other servers had stopped their work to watch. In the kitchen doorway, Chef Paolo and several line cooks peered out curiously. Even the finance bros had quieted down, though one muttered something that made his companion snicker. Lily reached the piano and hesitated, suddenly aware of her work clothes, black slacks and a white button-up shirt with a small food stain on the sleeve. Her hand smelled of cleaning solution and garlic. This was not how she had imagined returning to performance if she had allowed herself to imagine it at all. She glanced back at Alex, who had remained standing. He gave her an encouraging nod, holding up his phone to show he had already made the donation. This wasn't just for his entertainment, she realized. He was actually going to give that money regardless of how she played. That knowledge somehow made it easier. This wasn't an audition or a competition. It was just music. Lily took a deep breath and sat down on the bench. The height wasn't right, too low for her frame, but she wouldn't adjust it. This would be quick, just one piece and then back to reality. She lifted the fallboard to reveal the keys, clean ivory and ebony stretching before her like an old friend she hadn't seen in years. Gently, she placed her fingers on the keys without pressing down, reacquainting herself with their cool, smooth surface. The restaurant remained hushed in anticipation. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, visualizing the opening measures of Chopin's Ballade No. 1. Could she still play it from memory? It had once been so deeply ingrained in her muscle memory that she could have performed it in her sleep. There was only one way to find out. She began with the opening notes, a gentle, questioning melody that floated into the silent restaurant. The first measures were delicate, almost tentative, like someone dipping their toe into water to test the temperature before diving in. Lily's fingers felt stiff at first, unaccustomed to the precise movements required. She missed a note in the fourth measure and winced internally, but kept going. No turning back now. As the introduction gave way to the main theme, something shifted inside her. The years of training, thousands of hours of practice began to return. Her hands remembered what her conscious mind had tried to forget. The piece progressed, gaining complexity and emotional weight. Lily leaned into the music, her body swaying slightly with the rhythms that had once been as familiar as breathing. The narrative quality of the ballade began to unfold, its storytelling through music, the conversation between themes, the building of tension. She forgot about the restaurant, about Vincent hovering nearby, about the stain on her sleeve. She even forgot about Alex Thornfield and his strange challenge. There was only Chopin's genius architecture of notes and her hands bringing it to life. When she reached the middle section, where the tempo increases and the technical challenges multiply, Lily felt a moment of panic. This was where she had sometimes faltered even in her student days. The cascading notes required precision and abandonment all at once, a technical tightrope walk. But something unexpected happened as she approached the difficult passage. Instead of tightening up with anxiety, she felt herself relaxing into the challenge. What did it matter if she missed a note or two? The worst had already happened in her life. She had lost her dream, her mother, her sense of direction. Playing an imperfect Chopin was nothing compared to that. This realization freed her. Her fingers flew across the keys with newfound confidence, dancing through the rapid passages with fluidity and passion. She wasn't playing for judges now or for a degree, or even for the approval of the restaurant patrons. She was playing for herself, for the pure joy of it, for the person she had been and might still become. The piece built toward its thunderous climax, crashing chords and lightning-fast runs that demanded everything from the performer. Lily gave herself over to it completely, her body arching with the musical tension, sweat forming on her brow as she poured every ounce of herself into the keys. In the final coda, where Chopin brings back the opening theme before a final explosive conclusion, Lily felt tears welling in her eyes. The music spoke of loss and triumph, of questions without easy answers, of beauty that persists even through sorrow. It was everything she had experienced these past 3 years, somehow captured in notes written nearly 2 centuries ago. As she struck the final chords, powerful, resolute, definitive, she felt something break free inside her chest. A dam of emotions she had built to hold back disappointment and abandoned dreams gave way. The last note hung in the air, resonant and true. Then there was silence. Lily sat motionless at the piano, her hands still poised above the keys, her breathing heavy. For a moment she couldn't bear to look up, afraid of what she might see in the faces of the diners. Boredom, confusion, pity. But the silence was broken by a single person clapping, then another joining in, and suddenly the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Lily looked up in shock to see people standing from their tables, their faces alive with emotion. Even the finance bros were on their feet, their earlier rowdiness transformed into genuine appreciation. Vincent was staring at her as if seeing her for the first time. Chef Paolo had emerged fully from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron and nodding with grudging respect. Robert and the other servers were exchanging wide-eyed glances, whispering to each other, and Alex Thornfield was smiling. Not the measured, calculated smile of a businessman, but a genuine expression of pleasure and something that looked almost like vindication. Lily rose shakily from the piano bench, unsure of the proper protocol. Should she bow? Thank them? Run back to the kitchen and hide? Her legs felt unsteady beneath her, adrenaline still coursing through her system. An older woman at a nearby table caught her eye. "That was magnificent, dear," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite the continued applause. "Truly magnificent." Lily managed a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," she whispered. She made her way back toward Alex's table, aware of eyes following her and conversations starting up as she passed. She felt oddly vulnerable, as though she had revealed something intensely personal to a room full of strangers, which, in a way, she had. Alex was waiting for her, still standing. "I knew it," he said simply when she reached him. "Knew what?" Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "That you were extraordinary." He gestured to the restaurant at large. They knew it too, about 30 seconds in. Lily didn't know how to respond to that. 3 years of downplaying her talent, of pushing aside her musical identity, had left her unaccustomed to such direct praise. Vincent appeared at her side, his previous irritation replaced by an odd mix of confusion and respect. "Lily, I had no idea you could play like that." "It's been a while," she said, finding her voice. The owner's wife is on the phone, Vincent continued, holding out his cell. She heard everything. Apparently one of our regulars was streaming it on their phone. Lily's eyes widened in alarm. Streaming it? I didn't agree to. She's thrilled, Vincent cut in. Wants to talk to you right away. Before Lily could process this, another figure approached their small group. An elegant older woman who had been dining alone in a corner table. She moved with the confident posture of someone used to commanding attention. Excuse me, she said, her voice cultured and precise. I hope I'm not interrupting, but I felt compelled to introduce myself. She extended a hand to Lily. I'm Eleanor Hargrove. Lily automatically shook the offered hand, the name tickling something in her memory. Eleanor is the director of the New York Symphony, Alex supplied. A hint of amusement in his voice at Lily's confusion. Lily's hand froze mid-shake. The New York Symphony? She repeated numbly. Eleanor nodded. I'm also on the board at Juilliard. I don't recall seeing you perform there, which is surprising because I would certainly remember playing of that caliber. I had to leave before my final year, Lily explained, feeling oddly defensive. Family situation. Eleanor's expression softened with understanding. Life has a way of interrupting our plans, but talent like yours doesn't diminish with time, as you've just demonstrated. She reached into her purse and withdrew a business card. We should talk. We have an opening in our outreach program that I think might interest you. Lily took the card with trembling fingers, staring at the embossed lettering. Eleanor Hargrove, musical director, New York Symphony Orchestra. Thank you, she managed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll call me on Monday, Eleanor replied with a warm smile. We can discuss the details then. She nodded politely to Alex and Vincent before returning to her table. Lily stood rooted to the spot, the business card clutched in her hand like a talisman. Well, Vincent said after an awkward silence. That was unexpected, Alex chuckled. Was it? Talent always finds a way to surface. He pulled out his wallet and placed several large bills on the table. For the meal with a proper tip, he said meaningfully. Then he handed Lily an envelope. And this is for you as promised. She shook her head, trying to clear it. I can't accept. Oh, yes, you can, he interrupted gently. Because you're going to need it for new clothes, transportation to rehearsals, perhaps even a down payment on your own piano. He nodded toward Eleanor Hargrove. Something tells me your schedule is about to get very complicated. Lily looked down at the envelope, then at the business card, then back to Alex's face. Why? She asked simply. Why me? Why this? Alex considered the question for a moment, his expression turning reflective. Let's just say I recognize the look of someone who's had to put their dreams on hold. And sometimes all people need is a nudge to get back on their path. He glanced at his watch. I have a late meeting to get to, but I'll be watching for your name on concert programs. With a final nod to Vincent, he turned and walked toward the exit. Lily watched him go, still trying to process the seismic shift that had just occurred in her life in the span of 15 minutes. The restaurant had returned to its normal rhythm of conversation and movement, though she noticed several patrons glancing her way and smiling. Her performance had transformed her from invisible server to visible human being in their eyes. Vincent cleared his throat. I suppose you should take a moment, he said awkwardly. And then, well, table 12 needs their check. The ordinary request snapped Lily back to reality. She was still on shift. She still had hours to go before she could call her brother and tell him what had happened. But as she tucked the business card and envelope safely into her pocket and headed toward table 12, she moved differently. Her steps were lighter, her posture more confident. For the first time in 3 years, she could see a future that included music. And that made all the difference. The next morning, Lily sat at her small kitchen table, staring at Eleanor Hargrove's business card and the envelope Alex Thornfield had given her. She had barely slept, her mind replaying the events of the previous night in an endless loop. Her brother Tom wandered in, yawning and heading straight for the coffee pot. His dark hair stuck up at odd angles, and his engineering textbook had left creases on his cheek where he'd fallen asleep studying. You're up early, he mumbled, pouring a cup of the coffee Lily had already made. Thought you'd sleep in after that double shift. Lily took a deep breath. Something happened last night. Tom turned to look at her properly, suddenly more alert. Good something or bad something? I'm not sure yet. She pushed the envelope across the table. Look. Tom picked it up cautiously as though it might bite. What's this? Open it. He did, pulling out the check inside. His eyes widened and he nearly spilled his coffee. $20,000. What the? He looked up at her in alarm. Lily, what did you do? Despite her exhaustion, she laughed. I played the piano. Tom stared at her, waiting for more explanation. Sit down, she said. It's a long story. She told him everything about Alex Thornfield's challenge, her performance, the reaction of the restaurant, and Eleanor Hargrove's offer to meet about a position with the New York Symphony. Tom listened with increasing amazement, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. So this billionaire guy just decided to, what? Change your life on a whim? Lily shrugged. I guess so. He said something about recognizing someone who had put their dreams on hold. Tom looked down at the check again. This is real? You're sure he's not some kind of scammer? The donation to the music program went through while I was playing. I checked this morning. The foundation already received it. And I looked up Eleanor Hargrove. She's exactly who she said she is. Tom rubbed his face, still processing. So what happens now? I call her on Monday. Lily tapped the business card. Find out what this outreach program is all about. And the restaurant? She hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. Keep working there for now, I guess. Until I see what this other thing is. Tom nodded slowly, then reached across the table to squeeze her hand. Mom would be so happy about this. Lily felt tears sting her eyes. Yeah, she would. You know what this means, right? Tom said, suddenly grinning. We can finally fix that leaky shower. Lily laughed, feeling some of the tension leave her body. Trust Tom to bring things back to practical reality, and maybe get you a better laptop for your engineering projects. And actual matching dishes. Whoa. Let's not get crazy, Lily joked. They spent the morning making plans, cautious ones, aware that nothing was certain yet. Lily insisted they save most of the money until they had a clearer picture of what was happening. But they did agree to fix the shower, replace Tom's ancient laptop, and splurge on a real dinner out to celebrate. Throughout the weekend, Lily found herself drawn to the piano keyboard app on her phone, a poor substitute for a real instrument, but better than nothing. Her fingers moved across the small screen, working through passages of music she had once known by heart. Muscle memory was returning, but there was still so much work to do if she wanted to play professionally again. Monday morning arrived with a knot of anxiety in Lily's stomach. She had called in sick to the restaurant for the first time in 2 years, unable to face Vincent and the other staff just yet. At precisely 10 a.m., she dialed Eleanor Hargrove's number. Ms. Hargrove speaking. Hello, this is Lily Chen. From the restaurant? I played Chopin's ballad, Lily. I was hoping you'd call. Eleanor's voice warmed. That performance has been on my mind all weekend. Tell me, are you available to come to our offices this afternoon? 3 hours later, Lily found herself sitting in the administrative wing of Lincoln Center, trying not to fidget as she waited outside Eleanor's office. She had worn her best outfit, a simple navy blue dress that she kept for job interviews, but still felt underdressed amid the elegant surroundings. Eleanor's assistant, a friendly young man named Daniel, offered her tea while she waited. She's just wrapping up a meeting, he explained. Should only be a few minutes. Lily nodded, too nervous to speak. On the walls around her hung photographs of the orchestra in various prestigious venues around the world. Concert posters featured soloists with names she had studied and admired during her time at Juilliard. It all seemed so distant from her life of double shifts and budget spreadsheets. The door to Eleanor's office opened, and 2 men in suits emerged, deep in conversation about funding allocations. Eleanor appeared behind them, her silver hair styled in a sleek bob, her posture as perfect as any concert pianist's. Lily, please come in, she said warmly, gesturing to her office. The space was surprisingly cozy despite its grandeur, walls lined with books and records, a baby grand piano in one corner, and large windows overlooking the Lincoln Center Plaza. Eleanor directed Lily to a comfortable chair across from her desk. I've been doing some research on you, Eleanor began without preamble. You were studying with Professor Rivera at Juilliard before you withdrew. Lily nodded, surprised. Yes, in my second year. He speaks very highly of your talent, says you were one of his most promising students. Eleanor folded her hands on her desk. He was quite disappointed when you left. I didn't have a choice, Lily said quietly. My mother was ill, cancer, the medical bills. She trailed off, the familiar ache returning. Eleanor's expression softened. I understand. Life doesn't always align with our artistic pursuits. She paused, but sometimes we get second chances. She stood and walked to a filing cabinet, retrieving a folder. Our education and community outreach program has been expanding, she explained, returning to her desk. We bring music to schools, community centers, hospitals, places where people might not otherwise have access to classical performances. Lily listened carefully, trying to see where this was leading. We need pianists who are not only technically skilled but who can connect with diverse audiences, people who understand that music isn't just for those who can afford orchestra tickets. Eleanor smiled slightly. Based on what I saw at the restaurant, you have both qualities. Lily felt a flutter of hope. What exactly are you offering? A 1-year position with our outreach program. You would perform in community venues, work with student groups, and occasionally support the main orchestra as needed. Eleanor slid a document across the desk. The salary isn't extravagant, but it's enough to live on. And more importantly, it would get you back into music professionally. Lily stared at the paper before her, afraid to touch it in case this was all some elaborate dream. I'm not ready, she admitted. Technically, I mean. That Chopin was the first thing I've played in years. I'd need time to get back to where I was. Eleanor nodded. Of course. We wouldn't expect you to start performing immediately. There would be a month of preparation and training. She leaned forward. But I want to be clear about something, Lily. What I heard in that restaurant wasn't just technical skill. It was musicality, emotional intelligence, communication. Those qualities are harder to teach than finger technique. Lily finally picked up the document, scanning its contents. The position would start in 3 weeks. The salary was modest, but as Eleanor had said, livable. And most importantly, it would mean returning to the world she had reluctantly left behind. Could I have a day to think about it? She asked. Eleanor looked mildly surprised, but nodded. Of course. Take the time you need. She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. But don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't come around every day. As Lily left Lincoln Center, her mind was spinning. The concrete possibility of returning to music professionally was both thrilling and terrifying. She had built a different life these past 3 years. A smaller, safer life of modest expectations and manageable disappointments. Taking this job would mean risking failure on a much larger stage. She walked aimlessly for a while, eventually finding herself at the edge of Central Park. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, and the sounds of the city seemed to recede slightly. Finding an empty bench, Lily sat and pulled out her phone. She had one missed call from Vincent at the restaurant, probably wondering when she would be back at work. The thought of returning to Silver Spoon, of picking up where she had left off before Friday night, suddenly seemed impossible. Almost without thinking, she dialed a number she had programmed into her phone but hadn't called. Thornfield. The abrupt answer caught her off guard. Hi, this is Lily Chen? From the restaurant? A pause, then his voice warmed slightly. The pianist. I didn't expect to hear from you. I just met with Eleanor Hargrove, Lily said, suddenly unsure why she had called him. She offered me a position with their outreach program. Congratulations. When do you start? I haven't accepted yet. There was a beat of silence. Why not? Lily watched a squirrel darting up a nearby tree. I'm scared, she admitted. What if I can't get back to where I was technically? What if I'm not good enough anymore? You're asking the wrong questions, Alex replied. Technical skill is just the baseline. The real question is whether you still love it enough to push through the hard parts. His directness was both refreshing and unnerving. I don't know, she said honestly. I've spent so long trying not to think about music, trying not to want it. And how's that working out for you? Lily laughed despite herself. Not great, apparently. Look, Alex said, his tone softening slightly. I didn't challenge you to play the other night out of random curiosity. I recognize something in you, something I've seen in successful people across many fields. What's that? Hunger, he said simply. Not just talent, not just skill, but a deep hunger for something meaningful. You can bury that under practicality and bills and daily grind, but it doesn't go away. It just waits. Lily was silent, his words resonating uncomfortably close to her core. Take the job, Lily, he continued. See where it leads. The worst that happens is you decide music isn't your path after all, but at least you'll know for sure. After they hung up, Lily remained on the bench watching families stroll by, children laughing, couples holding hands, regular people living their lives, making choices big and small that shaped their futures. She pulled out Eleanor's business card again, running her thumb over the embossed lettering. Then she took out her phone and dialed. "I'd like to accept the position," she said when Eleanor answered. "Excellent," came the reply. "I was hoping you would. Can you come in tomorrow to sign the paperwork?" "Yes," Lily said, a smile spreading across her face. "Yes, I can." As she walked back through the park, her steps felt lighter. For the first time in years, she was moving toward something, rather than just getting by. The path ahead was uncertain, full of challenges she couldn't yet imagine, but it was a path with music in it, and that made all the difference. That evening, she sat down with Tom at their kitchen table and told him her decision. "So you're going to be a professional musician again?" he said, a proud grin spreading across his face. "I'm going to try," she corrected. "It's just a one-year position. No guarantees after that." Tom shook his head, always with the caution. "Can't you just be excited for once?" Lily smiled. "I am excited, and terrified, and grateful." She reached for his hand. "I wouldn't have survived these past years without you. You know that, right?" "Yeah, well." He looked slightly embarrassed by the sentiment. "You did the same for me. That's what family does." Lily nodded, thinking about their mother and how she had always encouraged both of them to pursue their dreams, even when money was tight. "I have to call Vincent," she said. "Give my notice at the restaurant. Are you going to miss it?" Tom asked curiously. Lily considered the question. "Parts of it. Not the sore feet or the late nights. But there's something honest about the work. You do it, you see results, people are fed and happy. Unlike music, music is different, more vulnerable. You're not just serving food. You're serving pieces of your soul on a platter and hoping people don't send them back to the kitchen." Tom laughed. "That's a weird metaphor, but I get it." He stood up and went to their small refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of cheap champagne they had splurged on that afternoon. "This calls for a celebration." As they toasted with mismatched glasses, Lily felt a strange mix of emotions: excitement for the future, nostalgia for the past, gratitude for the bizarre twist of fate that had brought Alex Thornfield to her section of the restaurant on that particular night. Life could change in an instant. Sometimes all it took was the courage to sit down at the piano and play. 3 months later, Lily stood backstage at Lincoln Center, listening to the hum of the audience on the other side of the curtain. She smoothed down her black concert dress, a simple but elegant piece she had carefully selected for her first major performance with the New York Symphony's community program. "Nervous?" asked Miguel, a violinist who had become a friend during her intensive training period. Lily nodded. "Terrified, actually," he grinned. "Good. The day you stop being nervous is the day you should quit. It means you still care." The past 3 months had been the most challenging and rewarding of Lily's life. After accepting Eleanor's offer, she had given notice at the Silver Spoon, where Vincent had been surprisingly supportive. "Always knew you were too good for this place," he had said gruffly. "Just didn't know you were that good." Her final shifts had been surreal. Regular customers who had previously barely noticed her now requested selfies with the piano waitress, as one local blog had dubbed her. Even the finance bros had returned, this time respectful and eager to tell her they had tickets to her upcoming performance. The transition hadn't been easy. Years away from serious practice had taken their toll. For the first few weeks, Lily had spent 8 hours a day at the piano, rebuilding her technique, her fingers often cramping from the unaccustomed workout. There had been moments of frustration when pieces that had once flowed effortlessly from her fingers now required painstaking repetition. But Eleanor had been right about one thing. The musicality was still there, perhaps even deeper now. Lily's experiences over the past 3 years had given her a perspective on life's struggles that informed her playing. Her interpretation of even familiar pieces had evolved, carrying new emotional weight. Tom had moved into a better apartment closer to his engineering school, though he still came over regularly to study in what was now Lily's practice room. The modest apartment had one magnificent feature: a used Yamaha upright piano that she had purchased with part of Alex's gift. It wasn't a concert grand, but it was hers, and she often found herself playing late into the night, rediscovering the joy that had led her to music in the first place now. Standing backstage for her first major public appearance since leaving Juilliard, Lily felt the weight of the journey that had brought her here. The community outreach concert had been Eleanor's idea, a showcase of the program's work over the past year, featuring performances by both symphony musicians and the students they had been mentoring. Lily's role was twofold. She would perform a solo piece, and then accompany a group of high school students from an underserved Bronx school where she had been teaching piano. 5 minutes. Everyone, called the stage manager, breaking into her thoughts. Lily took a deep breath. She had chosen to play Debussy's Clair de Lune, rather than returning to Chopin's Ballade. It felt right to start this new chapter with something different, something that spoke of moonlight and new beginnings rather than the turbulent emotions of the ballade. "You've got this," Miguel said, giving her shoulder a gentle squeeze before moving to his position for the opening number. Lily nodded, then reached for her phone to check it one last time before the performance. There was a new text from Tom. "Knock 'em dead, sis." Front row center, embarrassingly loud clapping. "Can't miss me," she smiled, typing back a quick thank you before turning off her phone. There was also an email from Alex Thornfield that had arrived earlier that day. Unlike Tom, he wouldn't be in the audience. He was in Japan for some tech conference, but his message had been characteristically direct. "Trust yourself. The music knows where to go." The first half of the concert passed in a blur. The symphony members performed beautifully, and the student groups showed impressive progress. Lily watched from the wings, her own performance drawing nearer with each passing minute. Finally, the stage manager nodded to her. "You're up next, Miss Chen." Lily smoothed her dress one last time and waited for her cue. As the previous performers took their final bows, she caught sight of Tom in the front row, just where he said he'd be. Beside him was an unexpected figure, Vincent from the Silver Spoon, looking uncomfortable but proud in a slightly too large suit. The applause faded as Lily walked onto the stage. The lights were brighter than she remembered from her student recitals, the silent expectation of the audience more palpable. She approached the gleaming grand piano at the center of the stage, adjusted the bench and sat down. Looking out into the audience, she could make out a few familiar faces. Not just Tom and Vincent, but some of her fellow servers from the restaurant. Eleanor in her usual seat, and even a couple of the finance bros, looking oddly subdued in their business attire. Lily placed her hands on the keys and closed her eyes for a moment. The silence in the hall was complete. Hundreds of people waiting for her to begin, to share something of herself through Debussy's timeless notes. She began to play. The familiar opening notes of Clair de Lune floated into the hall, gentle and introspective. The piece had always felt like a conversation with oneself, quiet, thoughtful, exploring inner landscapes rather than making grand declarations. As Lily moved through the composition, she felt that same sense of freedom she had experienced during her impromptu performance at the restaurant. But this was different too. This wasn't an act of defiance or rediscovery. This was coming home, settling back into her true self after a long detour. The piece built gradually, moving from its contemplative beginning to the flowing middle section, where arpeggios rippled like moonlight on water. Lily leaned into the crescendos, letting them swell naturally before receding again like waves on a shore. Each note felt connected to the next, creating a seamless journey through Debussy's luminous landscape. When she reached the final section, where the theme returns with greater depth and resonance, Lily thought of her mother, who had always loved this piece. She thought of the long hours at the restaurant, of Alex's unexpected challenge, of Eleanor's belief in second chances. All of it had led here, to this moment of pure communion with the music and the audience. The final notes hung in the air, gradually fading into silence. For a moment no one moved or breathed. Then the applause began. First a few hands, then a wave that built until the entire hall was filled with it. Lily rose and bowed, her heart pounding with emotion. As she looked out at the audience, she saw people on their feet. Not just Tom and her friends, but rows and rows of strangers moved by her performance. The feeling was indescribable. Not pride exactly, but a profound sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was meant to be. After taking her bows, Lily left the stage briefly while the high school students set up for their performance. These were the kids she had been working with for the past 3 months, teenagers from backgrounds similar to her own, with talent but limited access to musical training. When she returned to the stage to accompany them, she felt a different kind of nervousness, not for herself this time, but for them. They had worked so hard, overcoming insecurities and technical challenges to prepare for this moment. The group performed a jazz classical fusion piece they had arranged together, with Lily providing piano support, while various students took solos on their instruments. She watched their faces as they played, the intense concentration, the flickers of worry when a difficult passage approached, the pure joy when they nailed something challenging. In these young musicians, Lily saw echoes of herself at different stages: the early enthusiasm, the growing technical facility, the deep connection to the emotional core of music. Teaching them had become as rewarding as her own playing, perhaps even more so. When they finished to enthusiastic applause, one of the students, a quiet girl named Zoe who reminded Lily painfully of herself, whispered, "We did it." The triumph in her voice made all the early morning rehearsals and moments of frustration worthwhile. After the concert, the reception area buzzed with conversation. Lily moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations from strangers and hugs from her students and their families. "That was beautiful," Tom said when he finally reached her, pulling her into a fierce hug. "Mom would have been so proud." Vincent awkwardly offered his congratulations too. "The restaurant's not the same without you," he admitted. "But this is clearly where you belong." Eleanor approached with a distinguished-looking man Lily didn't recognize. "Lily, I'd like you to meet Howard Bergman, the director of our Young Artist program." Lily shook his hand, trying not to show her surprise. The Young Artist program was the Symphony's prestigious fellowship for emerging, professional musicians, a stepping stone that had launched many successful careers. "Ms. Hargrove has been singing your praises," Bergman said. "I was particularly impressed by your work with the students. Technical skill is common enough, but the ability to teach, to inspire, that's rarer." "Thank you," Lily said, not quite sure where this was heading. "We should talk soon," he continued. "We may have a more permanent position opening up that would combine performance and education. Your background makes you uniquely qualified." As he moved away to speak with other performers, Eleanor gave Lily a small smile. "I told you this was just the beginning." Later that night, after the reception had ended and the concert hall had emptied, Lily found herself alone on the stage once more. She sat at the piano, not playing, just taking in the silence of the vast empty space. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "How did it go?" She typed back, "It felt like the first day of the rest of my life." His response came quickly. "That's because it was." Lily smiled and looked out at the empty seats, imagining them filled again for future performances. The journey that had begun with a challenge from a stranger in a restaurant had brought her here. But this was just one milestone on a longer path. As she finally gathered her things to leave, she ran her fingers lightly over the piano keys one last time, the instrument that had once been the center of her world, then a painful reminder of dreams deferred, was now a bridge to her future, whatever that might hold. Outside the concert hall, the city hummed with its usual nighttime energy. Lily paused on the steps of Lincoln Center, looking up at the stars barely visible through New York's light pollution. She thought about all the twists and turns, the seeming setbacks that had ultimately led her forward. Sometimes, she realized life's detours weren't detours at all, but the actual journey, teaching us what we needed to know for the path ahead. And sometimes, all it took was one person who saw something in you that you had forgotten was there. With that thought warming her heart, Lily descended the steps and headed home, already thinking about tomorrow's lessons and the music yet to be played.